Hey friend, Emma here with another episode, and this is a really good one. This is one that I was so excited to record because it's with one of my favorite people in the world, Frances Fayden. She has really been my mentor in all things spirituality. We both met at a business coaching program that was all for women entrepreneurs. So it was all about helping women whose businesses just crossed into early six figures and trying to get them to scale bigger. And that's where I met Frances and a couple other women who were what they called light workers. I had no idea what that was. In fact, I'd never really heard that phrase before, but I could tell that it was like the woo-woo group, right? they were all wearing like flowy, caftany type things and Indian outfits and long hair. And they would kind of say things that I hadn't really heard before. They would acknowledge kind of channeling spirit and things like that. I ended up getting to know them, and Frances became my accountability buddy. Like, I was trying a lot of things to grow my business and nothing was really working. And also life felt really hard. And I ended up starting to work with her in a formal way, and it absolutely changed my life. I'm just excited to share this with you, and I hope that you get some insights or some ideas or even just an understanding that it is possible to live a life that is more aligned with what's in your heart, and that can actually be the path to your success. I know that's what I have been discovering through this work. So without further ado, I hope you enjoy this episode. Welcome to the Emma Stratton Show. This is a podcast that's all about sharing unconventional advice that will inspire you to create a business that reflects your true self so you can experience greater freedom and abundance in your work and life. And I'm your host, Emma. Oh my gosh, I have a treat for you today because we're going to be talking with, seriously, one of my favorite people on the planet, Reverend Frances Fayden, a dear friend of mine, also an amazing interfaith minister. She's an intuitive. She's an energy coach. She has also been my coach and mentor for many, many years. And I'm so excited to have her on today. So welcome, Frances. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you. I'm so honored and excited to be here with you. And of course, being in your energy is one of my favorite things. So yay.
You have been one of my most profound teachers and guides in my adult life. So, we met through a business coaching program many years ago, and it was a really cool program of like women entrepreneurs helping us kind of grow more sustainable businesses and things like that. And we met there and became friends. We were accountability buddies for a while, right? So we were accountable to each other. I don't know how great we were as accountability.
Yeah, I don't know how accountable we were, but
yeah, I think we just would chat on our daily calls. And at the time, I was working in tech, and I still am. And you were this interesting thing called an energy coach and a healer and a light worker. And this was all very new to me, and I didn't really understand it. But I was intrigued and eventually started working with you and got into this world of energy. So I know there are probably people listening who are like, what is energy? So let's just kind of start with the basics. Like, what is energy?
yeah, it's a great question. And I think if you asked a physicist, they would tell you one thing. If you asked a doctor, they would tell you another thing. If you asked an electrician, they would tell you another thing. And it's all the same thing. So we know that everything in the universe is energy. Everything's made of energy. Things are always going through form, out of form, all of that. So energy is the stuff of the universe. Everything is energy. And we are also made of energy. You could think of it from like a more medical way of thinking of it, or like an Eastern perspective of like life force, like they call it your life force or your chi or anything like that. Well, everything in the universe has a frequency. Everything has a vibration to it. Even something that seems solid like a rock or a stone, even that is made up of frequency. It might be a lower vibration, more dense frequency, but it has a frequency. And every person also has their own frequency. They have their own vibration. So when I'm working with people and I'm talking about your energy, it's a combination. It's you, right? It's your life force with your specific signature of how it really wants to express in the world. It's a combination of your thoughts and all your experiences and your feelings and your beliefs and everything. And it's all in your, what I call your energy field, which is you. And the simplest way I can explain it to people is kind of like, we know it, but we can't necessarily see it with our physical eyes. So if you walk into a room, like you're going to a networking meeting, right? And there's a really like cranky person over in the corner, and they're not even saying anything, but they're emitting this frequency. And you're like, ooh, I don't know that I want to sit next to that person, right? Well, what is that? You're picking up on their energy. You're picking up on that frequency that they're emanating. And it has to do with all of those internal things that we just talked about. And there's cultural things like, you love to travel. If you go to a different country, you're in a different energy. What is that? It's like, why is it that we're so drawn to certain countries and other countries we never would want to visit? It's because our vibration isn't matching that vibration. So a big piece of what I do with people is I try to help them understand their energy and what's the best match for them, and then eliminate all those cross currents that are blocking or impeding their energy from actually expressing the way that it wants to express.
I love that. And this is what you first kind of told me about energy, and it kind of blew my mind. So back then, I had been in business probably 3-4 years, something like that. And I had been getting sort of limited results, right? I was at the point where I was committed to the business. It took me a while to fully commit to the business. Like, is this going to be real, right? Or am I going to fail, right? So I was like, okay, I'm committed. Now I need to grow. And I tried a lot of the traditional things you're supposed to do, like market, like you do a webinar, write blog posts, try network, send emails, all that stuff. And I didn't enjoy any of it. I didn't want to do it. I tried. I didn't get a great result. And I was really frustrated. And I think when you and I were accountability buddies and talking, I had a full-on life, at 3 young kids, and everything just felt really hard. And you talked about energy, and I remember thinking, okay, well, everything else I've tried is just not working. So maybe I'll try this random new thing called energy that I don't really understand and see if it helps me grow my business. I was like, Frances, will energy help me grow my business? You're like, yes, absolutely. It will, help you kind of achieve things. So tell me, how does understanding your energy and working with it actually help you, achieve a tangible goal like business growth, for example?
Yeah. And you were very clear about that. Like, I don't care what you call it. Just give me some
give me results.
So if you listen to the story that you just shared, right, we can hear right there what was going on. I was doing all these things and I wasn't enjoying any of it. So right there, we have a cross current. We have a mismatch and a lack of alignment with your energy. And that was one of the things that you said to me was, I want to grow my business in alignment with my purpose, with like who I am. So that's really what we did. I just want to be clear. There's a lot of people out there that think like, oh, if I just get it aligned, everything's just going to fall into place. And the truth of the matter is when you take those actions that you are taking and you have them in alignment with who you are, that's when the magic happens. It's not either or. It's not like I'm going to align my energy and then magical fairies are going to bring me clients. Or it's not like I got to work. And then that's the thing. We have to bridge those two things of taking action while you're aligned with your energy. Those are the two things, and eliminating those cross currents. So if you remember back in the day, that summer when we were accountability buddies, you were working on that big project. Or was a proposal. And it was a big proposal that you were putting together for whatever the company was. And you worked really hard on that proposal and you poured your heart into it. And they passed, right? And they were like, yeah, we don't think we're going to do that. And I remember you were kind of crushed. You were like, oh my God, I poured everything into that. And then after that, that's when we had started working together. Well, one of the very first things that we did is we took a look at what I call your sacred life purpose. Your sacred life purpose is something that I can read in people's energy field. And it's really about what your soul came here to embody, to experience, and to express. And it's usually like one or two words, right? But it's kind of your core operating system. So we're talking to some tech people, right? It's like, this is your core operating system of like, you're wired for this. And then there's a lot of other details that we go into. But if we don't have this core thing down, it just becomes challenging. And so when I was looking at your energy, we did this session and I'm like, oh my God, Emma, you're wired for fun. You're wired for play. You're wired for exploration. So I said, that means that the harder you work, the harder it's going to get. And your eyes got really big and you're like, what are you talking about? And I said, the harder you work, the harder it's going to be. I said, you have to start going in the opposite direction. It's really important for you to start taking days off. It's really important for you to build some fun into your day, to let yourself play. And you were so skeptical. You were like, yeah, I don't know about that. I said, okay, well, let's come up with something. Can you have one day? And then you did. And you picked, I think it was a Monday, and you committed to going for a run outside, sitting in the hot tub, like just enjoying yourself and getting into that sense of like playfulness, right? And just like that, your energy shifted. And within 24 hours, I still love this story. Within 24 hours, that same company called you randomly, right? So you shifted your energy that sends the different vibration out to the universe. This company said, hey, thanks for that proposal. We're not going to do that. Would you be interested in coming and teaching a workshop? Basically, come play with us. I said, well, what would play look like for you actually in your business? And you said, well, I love teaching. I love all that stuff. I love workshops. And within 24 hours, you got that. And they're like, here, and we'll give you $10,000 or whatever it was. And up until that point, you were like, that has never happened. And that was the clearest evidence that I'd ever seen so fast of when you honor your energy, you get those tangible results. So again, if you were just sitting on the sofa and you hadn't been doing the work, you have to have something in place. But when you combine those two things together, that's when the miracles happen. That's why my podcast is Magnify Your Miracles, because a miracle is anytime something happens that you didn't think was possible. So you didn't think it was possible to get in your hot tub and to land a client, but you did.
I love that. I love your definition of a miracle and something happens that you didn't think was possible, because it doesn't have to be like something, out of this world. And I remember this idea of miracles, that same business course. Someone mentioned, no, you should expect a miracle every day. And I remember back then thinking, what? I should? That seems like too much. A miracle every day. And so that was what I learned with you, which was such a huge aha moment, was that don't fight against who you are. When you said, hey, actually you working less and having fun is going to be the key to growing your business, I'm like, no, that's too good, right? And I think that's true for everyone. What you helped me understand was we all have a different core operating system, right? We all have a different wiring. And that wiring is the way we should be showing up in the world. It's great for us, but life happens, expectations, society, and we think that the way we are is not the right way to be. So I was conditioned and grew up to think that, no, I have to grind. I got to hustle and grind, and that's the only way to operate. And so kind of coming back to myself was really strange at first, but then I started seeing those results, the evidence, right? I needed the tangible results. And when I started seeing the evidence, I grew confident in it. And now I'm really obsessed with this idea that I want to shout from the rooftops, which is, grow a business that aligns with who you are and how you show up in the world. And that's not only going to help you be more successful in the work, but you're going to have more fun. And you're also going to probably do more purpose-driven work. You're going to kind of contribute to society in the way that only you can contribute by following, your heart as truth. So that was really amazing. So I know you work with highly sensitive entrepreneurs, light workers, creative people. I mean, I know there's a lot of folks like that listening to this podcast. I know I am both of those things. If you are a creative or highly sensitive, Why is it even more important, let's say, to kind of think about your energy? How is it different for people like us?
Well, the thing that in my experience, and one of the reasons I love working with highly creative, highly sensitive people, is that we're impacted by things a lot more because we feel things. So your environment's going to impact you. There's a lot of different things that can be impacting you. And unfortunately, especially for women, we tend to think, what's wrong with me? We tend to think like, oh, I'm not good enough or I haven't done something right. When really it's like we need to get you in a different environment or we need to do something to help you because we're so open. You know, in the culture that we live in, we're bombarded with things. So when you know how to honor yourself, you know how to really take care of yourself, and it's different for every person. You know, it's not like everybody needs to just sit on the sofa and eat bonbons. It's like for you, like you need to go for a run, like you need to go outside. And there are many people that I've worked with. It's like they need to do something physical every day to like move their energy. And if they don't move that energy, it ends up turning within them. So knowing that about yourself, it's really a form of self-care. So on a very basic level, it's like working with your energy is a form of self-care. And if you're an entrepreneur, your business is you. If you're not taking care of your energy, you're not really taking care of your business. And I always say, like, you take care of your energy is going to take care of you, because I don't know about you, but I've noticed from myself as an entrepreneur, I have never had a time in my life where I'm struggling on a personal level, but my business is taking off. I've never had that happen. It's always like my business is doing great when I'm doing great, and my business is not doing great when I'm not doing great. And sometimes I wish that was not the case, but it's so obvious of like, what do we need to do? And you know, one of the things that I loved about working with you is anytime you saw something going on, you immediately looked at like, what do I need to take care of within myself? There may have been things on the outside that needed to get taken care of, but you always know the number one thing is what's going on with me. And as soon as we clear up energy, as soon as you get the energy flowing, then you can address whatever's going on the outside. But that's what I think is the most important thing about taking care of yourself.
Yeah, I think, you know, when we first met, self-care, I didn't really do self-care. Work hard, play hard. There wasn't a lot of self-care and really putting that in. So that's, you know, one thing I started to do to maintain my energy was kind of create these daily practices, rituals, boundaries, and things to help maintain energy. It's almost like I got a recipe of things that are good for me, and I have to make sure I, you know, eat my veggies and get good sleep and do all those things just to have that foundation. And I think it's so important. So that was something I was happy to learn.
Yeah, it's like your personal energy prescription, like what works for you. And that's the truth, is when I work with people over time, which is what I love doing, is working with people over time, that's when we start to see patterns show up, right? So when I'm working with somebody and then life happens, you know, and then you get a call from your mother-in-law or you have a unexpected bill come or something, how does your energy respond to that? And then we start to see like how to take care of you and how you can take care of yourself under those circumstances. And most of us have one or two things that are like a persistent stress factor in our lives, and your energy responds to it in a certain way. And when you can shift to, let's say you get an unexpected bill, if you're not like, oh, I got a bill, you know, you don't go into the doom and gloom, but you're like, all right, unexpected bill. I wonder where that money's coming from. Let's see. Your energy is not going to shut down. You're not going to cut yourself off from your own wisdom. And so keeping that energy going is a big piece of being able to know what your own wisdom is trying to tell you.
I love that about, being able to kind of shift your energy even when the situation seems, you know, not great, right? So you've worked with lots of people. So you see trends and kind of themes. And I'm just kind of interested, you know, because people might be listening and thinking like, I wonder if I have an energy challenge or if my energy wants something. And I know you work with a lot of women, you know, a lot of people who, you know, perhaps have their own businesses. Are there any kind of common, almost energetic challenges that you see? Like, are there some kind of top ones that are just common?
Yeah. So if you know the chakra system, you know the 7 energy centers. They each correspond to a different part of us, physically, emotionally, spiritually. And most of the people who come to me tend to be 3 and 4, third and fourth chakra people, solar plexus and heart chakra. So your solar plexus, and this is very common for women, is your self-esteem, your self-worth, and your personal power. And it's a really big thing for women to own their power, to really own it, because a lot of women have had power used against them and they don't want to be that way. And they haven't seen a model of what it is to be a powerful woman that is appealing to them. So a lot of times they squish that energy and they're actually sitting on the sun. The solar plexus is like the sun. So all that energy, and you're not comfortable with it. So you're keeping a lid on it, and all that energy has to go somewhere. So it can show up in weird ways in your life. It can create problems. It can create physical symptoms. So helping women to, and the way that you do it is you start to honor yourself. So it's honoring yourself, your relationship with yourself, holding yourself in higher self-esteem. It's going to help you make better decisions, all of that. But your personal power center and letting yourself shine. You know, the solar plexus wants you to shine. And whether shining is to one person or it's to millions of people, it doesn't matter. It's the way that you use that energy. So that's a big one that I find. And then the heart center. Your heart center is your ability to give and receive unconditional love, but it's also the seat of your deepest wisdom, and it's your deepest heart's desire. And it can be a vulnerability issue for people. So a lot of times, especially for women, if you've been hurt in the past, or if you're in a business environment and you think it's not okay to like be who you are, you're going to close that energy center off because you don't want to be too vulnerable. And then you're walking around going, what do I want to do? What is my guidance telling me? Because you've actually taken that software and it's offline now. You don't have access to that wisdom that's there. So those are some of the biggest things. And I'll say too, having worked with women for a long time, relationships are a big deal for women. And they come to me often and they're like, my business isn't working. And then you find out that their marriage is falling apart or something, or they're trying to grow a business. And what they really want is they just really want to get married or whatever. And I don't have any judgment about whatever it is, but women need to have relationships that are supportive of them for them to be more successful. I do meet some Lone Rangers every now and then, but they're rare. And so if you're having any challenges in your business right now, I encourage you to do a little inventory of your relationships. How's your relationship with your spouse or your family or your kids? And is there anybody in that circle that you're out of alignment with? Then maybe you need to distance yourself from them, or maybe you need to make amends to them. But those are energy drains. And so every time we have unresolved relationships like that, they're energy drains. And then you can't show up 100% in your business because your energy is over here worrying about your dad or your mom or whoever it might be. And then that'll throw you off. So those are probably the things I see the most.
That's interesting about relationships being so big for women. And I think most people are kind of aware of like energy drainers, vampires, those people that just take, you just feel like, ugh, after, you've got friends who can make you shine and energize and fill you up. And then you've got the people that drain you. And I think that's something that we're aware of. Many people are, but to actually realize that energy that's being drained away from you by a friend or the mother-in-law or whatever is actually taking away your power to manifest and create the life you want to live. Is it really worth that? So to realize like, this is real. I know when we worked together, I had certain relationships with my mother. I had to address that as something that was really affecting my energy and in turn affecting my business. And when I put boundaries in place that needed to be put in difficult relationships, my business started to grow. I know. Exponentially. I had a massive lifelong energy drain and I didn't even know it because I was just used to living with it. And when that was resolved, my business just went bananas. So it is real, energy, and following your energy and honoring it is just so important. But also, I think it's a really healthy, beautiful way to grow a business. One thing I realized in this journey, it's like a lot of business practices and business itself is unhealthy, is hurting the planet, is hurting people who are working within, especially in tech. There's a lot of grind and hustle and people who are not doing what they would maybe most want to do. So this idea that, hey, you can grow a business in a way that actually makes you feel stronger and happier, I think is just incredible. Like, what if every business was run that way?
Yeah, and they can be. The biggest challenge is not buying into the story, right? And that's why it's good to work with somebody, to have somebody that you're working with, because in the work that I do with people, and you saw it firsthand, I would say, okay, this is what your energy is saying. Try this thing this week, and then we'll check you next week. And then you'd come to me next week, and we would look to see, did it work or didn't it work? So that it wasn't me telling you, it was your own energy saying. Now you know, whenever you go on vacation, because you're so happy when you're on vacation and you're in your element, and opportunities tend to come to you. We didn't know that then, we know that now. But when you get to see it, and it's not just, it's in my head, I think this is a theory, it's actually really happening. It's so helpful because the cultural conditioning of grind culture, it's a really hard thing to break because nobody around you is going to say, yeah, I think maybe take a day off, or maybe do it differently, or maybe start your work day a little bit later and, move things around that work for you. People aren't going to tell you that, right? Because everybody's in that same story. But somebody on the outside can be like, this is what your energy is asking for. This is what's going on. And as we help you not have that resistance, things are going to really, really shift. And that's the secret. However you can take care of yourself, it's the secret sauce of everything.
One thing that, that came up with me when we thought about how can I take care of my energy? So you mentioned we realized vacations are really good for me. I would go on vacation, and I'm the type of person that when I go on vacation, like I have no problem ignoring my business. Like I'm not one of those people. It's like, oh my God, let me try and not check email. I'm like, I am more than happy. Yeah, I'm like, I don't have a business. What business? I completely go offline, and I think that's really healthy for me. And when I do that, we now know without fail, there will be some opportunity that will present itself directly, like that week right after. It's weird. It's my energy prescription. It is just how it works, And so some other people have asked me about that. And I met someone who kind of followed me on LinkedIn, met them at a conference. And he was like, how do I do that? And he was a musician, and he had been a very accomplished musician, but was now in marketing. And he said, I'm feeling blocked in my business. Like, what do I do? I just feel kind of stuck. And I think we've all been there in those periods where we just like feel stuck. I knew he was a musician, and I said, when was the last time you played your guitar? And he's like, oh, it's been a while. I said, okay, well, when you go home, you need to get back to playing your guitar. Now, it doesn't need to be all the time. If you just have 5 minutes, right? Just pick it up. But I think it's important that you play your guitar. I said, what else do you love to do? What makes you really happy? He said, I love hiking. I said, great. Make sure you hike every day. Grab your guitar, play a bit of guitar. Now, he was having like existential, I don't know what to do with my business stuff. And I'm like, just go play your guitar, go for a walk. But it was like, I knew that, if he's not doing these things that make him really happy on that soul level, that's probably part of the reason. And I'm not kidding, like a couple weeks later or something, I don't know. He was like, I did it. And oh my God, I got like this huge proposal, and it's coming through, and I'm so excited. This is like so meaningful amount of money for me. Like it was sort of like one of the bigger proposals he had accepted that came right after it. So how fun is that? If you want to grow your business or you're feeling stuck, just do something that you love, that you just makes you happy, and do it. And things are going to shift, right? Because your energy is going to shift.
Because you're shifting your energy. And that's the whole thing. It's not in the specific things themselves, because he could have been playing his guitar with a lot of angst,
Sure.
But it's like changing the channel, right? You're switching your frequency from like, oh no, to something that opens your heart. And now whew, you're on a different plane. And the great thing about working with your energy is it can be like that. Unlike other things where you think, oh, it's going to take me months and months. It can happen just like that. And then boom. You're on a different energy frequency, and then you're open in ways that you weren't open before, right? So I love that story. Yay!
Yay! And, that reminds me, that touches on another thing about how fast it is, energy work. I like fast results. I'm impatient about things. Like I want like the quickest route, right? That's me. Find me the quickest route. And I've actually never done talk therapy, but I have lots of friends who have done talk therapy, years and years and years. And you can get great results. But I also know people who've been doing it for years and years, and actually not a lot has shifted for them in their life. And so I think that's what I love about energy work is like you can have that shift. You can shift on a dime, change a perspective, open your heart, and then it can shift your perspective and then your reality can change. And I think that is what makes it so fun and refreshing.
Absolutely. You change your energy, everything else changes. And you change the story too. You change the story that you're telling yourself to a better story, a one that actually works in your favor. And that will just expand your energy when you start telling yourself a better story.
Totally. I have a much better story that I tell myself thanks to our work together. So if anyone's sort of listening and thinking like, oh, this energy sounds great, right? Where is a good place to start if you don't really have too much background in energy work or even, understanding your chakras and things like that? Where would be a good place to start?
Well, I'm really big on journaling. And what I love about journaling, and you might not think journaling and energy, what's that? But what I love about journaling is you can kind of check in with yourself of like, where am I right now? And then you can do your journaling and then you can say, how do I feel afterwards? And the simplest way to work with your energy is just asking yourself, how do I feel? How do I feel? Now, when you work with somebody like me, I can really dial in and be like, it feels like this, and we can get really super specific. But just on a plain old simple get started basis is, do I feel good or do I feel bad? Just make it super simple. If you're not feeling great, I would be journaling and I would write at the top of my page, like on a scale of 1 to 10, if 1 is like horrible and 10 is great, it's like I'm a 3 right now or whatever. And I would write that down and then I'd be like, I would write it out, and then just start to listen for what comes. Because sometimes just giving yourself permission to feel bad can let it out. And then I ask myself a question of like, what else might be possible? Like, what else is also true? And I'll just start to write things. Or doing a gratitude practice can be really helpful as well. How did you feel before? And then check, how do I feel afterwards? Now, if you were 3 and you went up to a 4, that's progress. It means that you're moving in that direction. So the simplest way is just, how do I feel? Now, if you want to get fancy, you can be like, where do I feel it in my body and all of that? But anything that you do that makes you go from not feeling good to feeling better, that's using your energy. Be very careful of things that do that, like alcohol or, other kinds of substances that you're not necessarily in control of how they're impacting you. Just be mindful of those. It's part of the reason people do them is because they're trying to feel differently. They want to feel something different than what they're feeling. But you can do that by going for a walk. You can do it by journaling. You can eat a lovely meal. You can call a friend. You can do something creative. That's one of the best things you can do. You can paint, you can draw, you can write, you can play an instrument. All of those things are going to get you to the other side of your brain and to a different part of yourself, and it will automatically shift your energy. Exercise is really good. Yoga, anything along those lines. So what I would say is start keeping track of what you notice and what works for you. Because that's what I try to do is give people like their energy toolkit of this is what we know works for you when you're not doing so great. So just like when you feel that there's a cold coming on, most people are like, oh, I'm going to drink, water with lemon and honey, or I'm going to take a nap, or I'm going to, do whatever they're doing. Similarly, when you start to feel your energy going down and you're starting to feel discouraged, or you're starting to feel worried, or whatever that would be on the bad side. Like that's an energy of like, oh, these are things that I'm not feeling good. I have a little bit more energy here. What's something that I can do without pretending that you're not worried? You're just going to let the worry be there. And then you're going to go for a walk, or you're going to listen to an audiobook, or you're going to do a meditation, or you're going to be out in nature, or whatever it might be. Just doing that will create a new energy for you of things that you can do. And then pay attention, and then you'll come up with your own little kit.
Awesome. Well, Frances, what are some ways that people can kind of move forward from this episode and start learning more from you, potentially working with you? What are some ways people can have more Frances? Because we all want more Frances.
Well, you can always tune into my podcast, the Magnify Your Miracles podcast. That comes out every week, and I always share things there as well. So there's that. Of course, you can work with me individually if you'd like to. If you want to find out if working with me would be helpful, you can go to francesfayden.com/miracle meeting. And a miracle meeting is a complimentary call where we talk about whether coaching might be a fit for you or not. The other thing you can do is you can join my membership, the Magnify Your Miracles membership as well. And that's a place where you're in my energy a couple of times a month. And we all support each other in being in this vibration of witnessing miraculous things, whether it's landing a client you didn't think was possible, or healing from something that you didn't think was possible, whatever it might be. Oh, and then the last thing is my journal just came out. The Magnify Your Miracles journal. Yeah.
Yay!
So my Magnify Your Miracles journal just came out, and it's in digital or print format. So speaking of, it's got the 4 core practices that I do that I recommend that people do to really help them focus and magnify their miracles, which is working with gratitude, focusing on your goals, a form of forgiveness that I call revision, and then tracking the evidence. And so again, I love journaling. I think those are great things to do.
Oh, that journal is a must-have. I've got to get mine. And your podcast is amazing. I can't recommend.
Thank you.
Yeah, Magnify Your Miracles podcast. You just have so many cool guests, and you share so many really helpful resources around all of these ideas. So definitely people should check that out for sure. Frances, it's been so fun, as I knew it would be, chatting with you today. Thank you so much for coming and sharing this incredible wisdom that I just think, everyone needs to hear, but most especially women, creatives, sensitive people. So thank you so much.
Thank you, my friend. It's so great to be here. And I'm just wishing you all the best success with your podcast.
Thank you. Hey, my friend, you've been listening to The Emma Stratton Show. If you'd like to follow me in my writing, you can find me on Substack. Thanks again for listening.